We've reached the end of our term just about in Psych 250, and so these are the details about your final project. This is a big deal project. It replaces a final exam, and the title of the project is Generating Change. So take your time to view this video with care because this is a big proportion of your grade. So this is what we will be taking a look at for your final project. So we've been talking all this term about the psychological dynamics of social interactions, including most recently the tools of power and influence. Now what you're going to need to do is to use all this information to create a real-life change plan for some behavior that would benefit your community, your clan, or your cohort. So you're now asked to use the tools that you were given in this course. And just to put this into context, in your recent participation, I asked you whether there was a behavior that you saw in people around you that you thought would benefit by changing. So you might focus on that behavior. Some of you named like getting animals spayed and neutered, or stopping littering, or mask wearing. Those are some of the ideas that you had, so you might want to go with something like that. So that's what you're going to do, develop this plan. And I want you to think about this plan as something that you might actually take the lead on. You might actually spearhead. This might be one of those beautiful efforts that you put forward that would be put onto your resume and help you get jobs in the future. Maybe you can picture yourself after you develop this plan and share it in our class. Maybe you can adapt your presentation and find a way to make this to, say, your community board or a contingent at the university that might be able to provide you with the resources that you need to actually make this change happen. So I'd like you to think about it that way. And when you watch your classmates' presentations later on, I'd like you to think about those that way too, as something that could really happen, that the individuals in this class could spearhead. So the first thing you're going to do is prepare yourself. You're first going to figure out what this behavior is in your community, cohort, or clan. And this will be a group, like something that a group is doing. You're not going to be working at, say, getting your partner or your spouse to exercise more or getting your kids to play less video games. You're going to be focusing on a behavior that a lot of people have and focusing on like a large scale change like that, not an individual change. The change will occur within individuals, but we're looking to change the behavior of many individuals, not just one. So there are certain pages in your textbook that you're going to reread, and I've actually numbered those on subsequent pages, so that's why I've highlighted it here. You're going to be reading one of a number of articles from The Social Animal to see examples of how these plans are put together like in a social psych way. You're going to look at a value scale, which is going to help you to assess the values of your target audience, those people you wish to change. And you'll be watching a little video on motivational interviewing, and this will prepare you to talk to people who you're trying to work with or understand better. So in brief, this is an overview of how you will create your project. More details follow. You can see them linked. So first, you'll describe the behavior you'd like to change. Secondly, you'll describe the target audience. This is the people who are engaging in the behavior. Thirdly, you'll learn about them. Fourthly, you'll create a message tailored to this audience. Fifth, you'll develop an implementation plan. Sixth, you'll download templates and fill in your writing to create your presentation. 7, you'll record your presentation on Zoom. And 8, you'll upload your presentation to YouTube. When those steps are done, you'll submit your title and abstract to the project abstract assignment box, and I'll give you more information in a moment. And you'll submit your slides with speaker notes and a link to your YouTube presentation to the submit presentation box. Finally, you'll attend the conference. So we're going to have a conference at the end of all of this called our Generating Change Conference. I will prepare a program based on your information that you provide me, your title and abstract, and I'll also put a link to your presentation. You'll need to choose 4 presentations you'd like to attend and view them. Provide specific feedback to each presenter about what you thought was very good, a suggestion to make their plan better, and a question for them. You'll respond carefully to the feedback of your classmates, and you'll respond to your instructor's feedback. So here are the detailed steps. First, you're going to prepare by reading the material on the slide that was shown earlier. So that is on the slide that showed the readings and the motivational interviewing. Secondly, so the first thing you'll do is describe the behavior. So you'll first identify the behavior. What behavior is it that you'd like to change in your clan, community, or cohort? We'll focus on the group behavior, not the behavior of just one individual for the purposes of this class. And you'll describe the behavior. So what exactly is the behavior? How do we know what it looks like? How often does it happen, or how bad is it? Could it be stated as a positive, like take your trash with you versus stop littering? Think about it. Goal, what would be a realistic change goal? You can't say you're going to end all littering forever in your region. So what would be realistic? How much of a reduction would you like to see? And how will you measure it? How are you going to keep track of whether your goal has been met? Are you going to like weigh the trash or pick up pieces of trash, or how could you do it realistically without too much trouble? Step 2, you're going to define the audience. So who is it that's doing this behavior that you want to change? Is there a particular age group? Is this young people, older, mixed age, teens? Is it primarily female, primarily male? Anything like that going on, or is that mixed? What is the culture? This could be based on ethnicity, like this is the behavior of more of Navajo people or Belagana, or it could be a different sort of culture, like a culture based on shared values, norms, or activities, like teenage skateboarders, for example, or partiers, or people who work together, or people who do a certain kind of job, or people who go fishing, something like that. So what's the culture? What are the norms, you know? And that's similar to the last question. Do they share some sort of a common characteristic? So what do you know about this audience? And you'll be including a source here. You don't want to just guess at this, and this is indicated in the slides. Then this is probably the more challenging task. You need to learn about this target audience, because we often have assumptions that turn out not to be true. And so here's where you're going to have to use your judgment about what's best. The best option would be to talk to people. And this isn't talking to people in a judgmental way. So this is the challenge. So if you feel really angry about the behavior you're trying to change, then you might not be, if you can't get past that, to just listen to people, then you might not be best off talking to people, because I don't want anyone to get into any kind of angry interaction here. But if you can nurture in yourself an attitude of like curiosity, of respect for fellow human beings making a different decision than you for their own reasons, and you want to learn about their reasons. So if you can have this in your heart, this respect, this interest, curiosity, kindness, while you're talking to them, then this might be good for you to just find a couple people and talk to them. And I include for you all to watch this link to motivational interviewing. And the reason I include it is not because you're going to conduct this, it's a therapeutic technique, but because in this kind of process, this attitude of respect is nourished. And this way of asking open-ended questions is nourished. And if you watch this video, you'll get a sense of what that would feel like to talk to someone who's engaging in a behavior that isn't great, in a way that helps to understand the behavior without judging the individual. So I recommend talking to people. However, if it seems dangerous, like if it's, you know, drug drug users, or they might have some sort of a characteristic that would make them a threat to you. You don't want to do it that way then. Then you need to find other sources of information to learn about the audience. And so you don't want to use just gossip. You know, maybe you can find some official resources in research, that would be great, or maybe even just a news story, but it's up to you to find out about your people, but it's got to be outside of just your own perspectives or judgments, and it can't be just gossip. And what you want to learn about them? You want to learn about how they think, and you want to learn about their attitude toward the behavior. So how do they think? So in this case, what values do they hold? What do they value? Remember, we've learned about how we can use values to design a plan. So you might look at what I attached for you, the value sort inventory, and it just lists values. And you could give this to people if you're talking to them and they could tell you, or you could just look at the list of values to get some ideas about what we mean when we're talking about values. Then secondly, see if you can find out what sources they believe. Like who or what do they trust as credible sources of information? Elders or doctors? Teachers? Do they trust teachers or not? Parents? Do they trust conservative or liberal news sources? Books? Fellow teens? Some sort of a leader teen? Who do these people trust as sources? And then thirdly, see what you can do to get a sense of what their need for cognition is. You know, a lot of people in academia, like me, really need to think about things a lot and understand them before you're going to persuade me. Like that's going to be something that would be important. So what about your audience? Are they people who just prefer to make quick on-the-fly decisions, or do they like to think deeply? How could you learn about this? And then third thing is to learn about their attitude toward this behavior. So what do they believe about this behavior? What motivates them to do or not to do this behavior? What are the obstacles or the facilitators? What do they know about the consequences of this behavior? What social norms do they follow with respect to this behavior? Do they want to change the behavior? If so, what barriers or obstacles prevent them? So each of you has a different project, and this will look a little different for each of you, but we need to see something about their values and about their thinking in general, and something about this attitude that they have toward the behavior. And sources are needed, not just guesswork. So step 4, you're going to use this information you've gathered about your audience to create the right message. So you're going to think about how your message targets your audience, and here's where you'll reread pages 248 to 252 to think about the central or peripheral route, what source, how much vividness, that sort of thing. Then you're going to address resistance, and here you're going to have to go back to pages 260 and 265 and just reread it and think about how you could target this like attitudinal resistance. And then also you might go back to chapter 7 and think about dissonance. Like, could you use dissonance? Like if they have values that are in conflict with this behavior, could you use dissonance? And here are some of these articles, and you're going to choose an article in Social Animal. One of them might help you here. Influence, informational and social influence were described on pages 274 to 278. You'll need to address this. And then your approach. Are you going to use a norm-based approach, reasoned, emotion-based, a little of each? How can you take advantage of this? And the page references are 287 to 296. Next, you're going to develop your plan. And this is like just putting it together in something that could actually be done. So the message is like the concept, and then the plan are like the step-by-steps. And you can see some procedures, whatever article or articles, if you're really on top of things, you choose in the Social Animal, you'll see how they did it, how they actually did it. And then you're going to be thinking about what support, what funds you need, what materials you need. You're going to think about how you're going to assess your outcomes, and you're going to put together a timeline. That's it. Then you can download your templates and prepare your slides. The template is, I put together the slides for you, and I will show them to you in a separate link soon. And you just download it and it tells you what to do on each slide, and then you can just replace it with your content. You're going to be adding speaker notes to each slide, and you'll see how to do that. And then you have to submit it by the deadline along with the URL to your Zoom presentation, otherwise you can't participate in the discussion. Next, you will be recording your presentation. I recommend that you use Record Slideshow in PowerPoint to do this. The reason I recommend it is that it gives you a chance to, if you make a mistake on one slide, you don't have to do the whole presentation over. You can just re-record the audio for that one slide. So first off, you need to practice your presentation. It has to be 12 minutes long, give or take a minute, but not more than that. This is something you'll have to do whenever you present for the rest of your life, is to watch your time. So you might as well start here. So in PowerPoint, you'll see the instructions as follow. And it just doesn't make sense for me to read this because it's all here. So follow this written instructions to do that when you're ready to do it. And then you will upload your presentation to YouTube. There's a little video here if you haven't done this before. Do set it to either unlisted or public, depending on your preference, and make sure that the link works before you submit it. Give it to send the link to a friend and have them check that it works. After that, you will be submitting your project. And first off, you're going to submit your title and abstract. And I do need you to create a very good title for your presentation. This is worth points. And it needs to have some sort of engaging word or phrase followed by a clear description of the contents of your presentation, including the behavior that should be changed and the audience, target audience. So I have some examples. Imagine that I have a presentation on water conservation. I might title it Clean and Aware, Decreasing Water Waste During Showers in a College Dormitory. You can see that I have the behavior that needs to change, the direction of the change, and the individual, or at least the college dormitory suggesting students are going to change. An example title for a project to encourage people to let roads dry out before driving on them. You're tired on driving on rutted out roads. And the title is Bottoming Out, Discouraging Driving in Wet Conditions on a Newly Graded Dirt Road. An example title for a proposal to decrease procrastination among college students might be titled On Time and in Charge, Altering Procrastination Habits in College Students. And then you also need to write an abstract, which is a short description of what the contents of your presentation is. Basically, it can be 4 sentences. And I have those 4 sentences listed, and then the exact example sentence is color-coded in the same way in the paragraph below. So the behavior, 1 sentence about the behavior, what behavior will be changed and why. The audience, what message will you be targeting for your plan. The message, what message will be proposed to alter this behavior. And implementation, how will it be delivered to the audience. So my example is this. The behavior in this sentence in blue. This presentation describes a plan to discourage people from driving on newly graded dirt roads when they are wet, to prevent ruts and erosion and to improve safety. So there's the behavior sentence. Audience. This message will be targeted to residents living at any location along the road who use that road, which comprise families using the road for supplies and work-related needs. I can see that I didn't proofread because I have some redundancies. And if I had read this aloud to proofread, I would have gotten rid of this, say using the word road 3 times in this sentence. That's no good. The message deemed best suited to this audience revolves around A, safety of others, B, education about road care, and C, alternative options. That's about the message. And implementation, this message would be delivered via a series of signs located every 1/8 mile along the dirt road in question. And so this is a synopsis of it. It doesn't go into all of the content. It doesn't have sources, nothing like that. This just tells what your project is. And that's what I'm going to put in the program, so make it good and don't do as I did. Make sure and proofread. Then you're going to submit your presentation. You're going to submit your presentation slides. These are what I'll use to carefully look over the content of your presentation because it tends to go kind of fast when you're talking. So you'll want to proofread your slides, make sure you use spell check in the review menu, ensure that you have short bulleted points, include speaker notes in the presentation so I can remember what it is you said about it later. And then you're going to submit your YouTube link. And one note, you have to submit all of this on time if you want to earn the discussion points. There's no other way I can ensure that your work is included. It has to be on time. And lastly, you'll participate in the conference. And I already gave you instructions earlier for how you are to participate, and so I won't repeat those now. And how am I going to grade this? I'm trying a new approach. I want to grade it on a 4-point scale where a score of 4 is advanced. It means you met the requirements and you went beyond what students in 200 level social psych course could be expected. For example, you sought extra information or sources, you used concepts really well and even maybe got some additional concepts from our trust. You showed some good creativity in synthesizing these ideas, and that would be like an A. A score of 3 means proficient. It means you demonstrated all the skills, concept, and understandings that were required for the assignment as they were described. And this would be like a B. 2 points would be basic. It means you met some but not all the expectations required. You showed a basic understanding of the requirements, but not a really strong understanding. Maybe there were some conceptual misunderstandings or you didn't use vocabulary well. This would be like a C. A score of 1 means it's just not there yet. You didn't produce a project that shows that you understood and applied these necessary concepts in social psych, and that would be like a D. And you can't get a 0. A 0 would be if you didn't do it, but you have to do it if you want to pass the class. So on what is this 4-point scale going to be used? I'll be looking at 3 areas. So the bulk of it, 60%, will be on your content, like the meat of your project. And so I'll need to see that your target behavior meets the requirements, that you've described your audience in conjunction with what we had listed in terms of those characteristics, the values, the attitudes, the things that are going to help you develop a plan. Third, your message. Does it incorporate all the components? Do you show, in a nutshell, have you shown that you understood the content of this course and that you could apply it to your audience or to what you're trying to convey? So you need to address all those things, the influence, the approach, and the resistance, as well as the message itself targeted to the audience. Next, your plan. Did you develop a reasonable plan for sharing this message with people? And did you have some evidence of having attended to one of the articles? You know, you got some ideas, or at least you mentioned the article in the Social Animal. And then sourcing. Do you use sources as required and described on the template? Then your delivery is the quality of care of your project. You can have an excellent plan, but if you don't deliver it to us well, we can't understand it. So did you take some time to make sure that you didn't exceed or go short of the time frame? Or are you just kind of guessing and then you stop in the middle when you realize your time is up? How did you do that? Did you put care into that? Slides. Did you make slides that are concise, precise, accurate, original, engaging, short bullet points? Or are they kind of just run on and not really very strong, not engaging, not very clear or well organized? Your presentation. Do you know what you're talking about? Are you able to look at those bullet points and know what you have to say about it? And when I look at your slides, are your speaker notes decent? Does it show that you planned ahead a little bit? And then care. Did you proofread? Are there a lot of careless mistakes? How did you do with the details? Does it look good? And then finally, the last bit is related to the discussion. You're providing feedback to others, meeting specific criteria in terms of what you provide to them. And then you're responding to questions on your own as well as to my questions and comments. So that is the grading. And sourcing, I just added a little bit here. You'll want to make sure that all the slides that need sourcing have it. Even if it's personal observation, then you indicate that. that you have a reference page, and that you're using APA style. And once again, I provided you with this information. This is the grading rubric. You should look at this closely. If you want to have like a 4, if you're striving toward a 4, then make sure and look this over and see what you need to do. And then the 3 is what most people would be able to get if you just met the requirements and you did, you did that, then you would be getting a 3 and so forth. So take a look at this rubric. It's a little bit bulky for me to go over all with you here. I hope this helps. The template is available for you, and you'll see everything you need online. Thanks for tuning in here.